Hello and happy Thursday, everybody. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead, and we have another great weekend of racing. I'm gonna cut straight to it. All right, normally I have something to be upset about, something to be angry about, something to complain about. And well, actually, I do. My two normal co-hosts, they decided to ditch me tonight. I don't know what could possibly be more important than handicapping Saturday Saratoga. Although, in fairness, Marcus probably had this thing handicapped since like Tuesday when the earlies came out. So I guess I can't blame him too much. However, um, I you know what I'm just gonna bring Matthew in now. Matthew, I always forget. Was it there's that producer guy for the Beatles? They used to call him was it the fourth Beatle, the fifth Beatle? I forgot how many Beatles were there.
The fifth
Beatle.
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of feel like you're like that for us here, because whenever I'm just like I need the righty out of the bullpen, you're usually ready and willing. So I appreciate you. But how you been, man?
First of all, I'm a lefty, and so you just lefty out of the bullpen. I'll go lefty matchups all day. I'm doing well, man. Enjoying Saratoga. The weather up here has been absolutely wonderful. It's going to be a beautiful weekend. So great turf racing, honest track, and really a lot of fun. So it's been great, having a blast, and excited even for like Del Mar getting started. They have some nice races out there this weekend as well. So yeah, man, doing well and just enjoying things. And I'll say Wednesday was an absolute slaughter on the track. I was just like 0 for 10, I think. They didn't even run 10 races, and I was 0 for 10. And today was much, much better. So we're back in black.
I told you my story on Wednesday,
Yes.
and I don't know if the people don't know, but I have this like unwritten kind of rule in my head, and I tell this to Caleb and Mark all the time. I have this problem where when I know I'm running good and the ADW has got money in it, like all of a sudden my normal 27, 36, $48 tickets, they start ballooning up to like 81, 120, 144, right? Like, cause I feel like I'm seeing the ball well, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna go for it. I've really been trying to rein that in, right? And just kind of play the same level I normally do. Well, what the fuck happens on Wednesday? But I'm sitting there and I'm looking at a ticket, an $81 pick 5 ticket, and I'm like, I just played an $81 pick 5 ticket in the early, and I missed, and I'm just like, I can't. I shouldn't play another $81. Maybe I'm just spraying and praying at this point. So I cut one horse, and that was the Safi Joseph horse that won the stakes race, the 6 horse. I ended up going 4 out of 5 for 8,200, I believe, eight grand, something like that, to save 27 whole dollars. So I got that going for me. I got that $27 still in my ADW, but it was a tough one because I'm trying not to beat myself up too badly about it, because the fact of the matter is, I loved a seed in that race. I absolutely loved the seed. A seed was nearly a single for me in that race. And I talked myself into adding another horse. And then I was like, wait a second. Mike Smith in for one mount. This smells really fishy. This horse has to be well met. And I added him. And then I was just like, I just really like a seed. So instead of cutting the other horse, I think it was the 5 horse was the other horse I used in that race, and I'm forgetting the name. I think it was it was another price. I think it was a Junior Alvarado riding for somebody.
Okay.
Um, but I was against Money's Gold, and
Yeah.
I'm like, so I ended up going with the 1 and the 5, and I tossed the 6, and yeah, that one hurt a little bit. But yeah, yeah, and I already see Uncle Sully in here. Failed to menace going 0-10 on a day that only 9 races ran. Hashtag not on my bingo. Also not on this bingo is us starting on time.
Yeah.
What
There
kind
you
of chuck wagon bullshit is this? So I mean, hey, maybe the fact that I'm here and we're starting on time and the other guys aren't here, like maybe we got it. But
It tells
um,
us something.
but you want to know what the most tragic part of yesterday was, Matthew?
Hmm.
Right. So I crash out of that pick 5, right? And I ended up going 4 out of 5, realizing I just, let $8,000 slip through my fingers. And all I could think about was like, well, at least I've been running hot at Assiniboia Downs. I got Assiniboia Downs to bail me out.
Hey,
Wrong.
no, wrong,
They're
wrong.
not running on Wednesday the next couple weeks. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
that probably hurt more than the $8,000 because I'll tell you what, Matthew, I have just been absolutely on fire. And even funnier is I haven't been on fire with the pick 4. For some reason, I think I hit the back-to-back early pick 3s. One paid, I think, $500 because I had it for like $2 or $3, and the other
Yeah.
one paid like $300 or $400. So like I've been making money at Assiniboia, uh, giving it all back at Saratoga, which seems to be a running theme. And then we got Del Mar starting up now too, which seems to usually cost me money. But I don't know. It's been a weird week, but we got a fun weekend coming up of racing. And we got a couple of fun sequences. We got a fun sequence to talk about. We got a couple of interesting races I think to look at. Some also not that interesting races. I think we started to see this. Um, just I don't know. I just think maybe with Grade One racing in general, sometimes you get these Grade One races, Grade Two races, and you. I don't know if it's people trying to avoid each other, if it's just not having a stock of horses. But I mean, we can, I'll pull up Del Mar to start because I think we have a race that we could probably get through pretty quickly here in the San Diego Handicap, Grade Two, going to mile 16th on the dirt. And the reason I say this is pretty, like, for me, this race is a no bet. I can't bet this race.
Right.
And the tough thing about it is I don't think I can trust Arabian Night enough to single him in this spot. He's going to be
Hmm.
very, very, very short. And but I don't like any of the other horses in this race. So it kind of, you end up in that weird spot where it's like, all right, I don't really like the favorite, but I also don't like the other horses. So where does that kind of put you, in this spot? I mean, Arabian Nights your most likely winner, but I mean, he's going to be maybe even 1-9 in this spot, 2-5. This is going to be really short, but I don't know, Matthew. What did you think?
Yeah. Listen, he's going to be an incredibly short price, and I think that the reason you might be and people might be hesitant to even use him as a single is the Haskell last year. If you notice, last year's Haskell was off of a significant layoff, just like this race is off of a significant layoff. He hadn't run from January until July last year, then comes back and finishes third. And what you saw was fatigue, running his race, getting out up front, and then tiring late. Now, granted, he got beat by two very good horses, Go Rocket Ride and Mage, but still, it was a race off the bench and kind of needed an effort. Then he comes back to win the Pacific Classic next time out. He's coming off an incredibly long layoff, has not run since finishing fourth by 2 at the Breeders' Cup Classic, which was, by the way, I thought a pretty good effort, all things considered. Um, but you do have some questions about, is this horse going to fire off the bench, or is this horse maybe going to tire a little bit? I'll say if I was going to look at anyone else, if I was going to try to kind of play against him, I'd probably go to Dr. Venkman, the number 3 horse. I think he is at least interesting. And I know he's stretching out, but there's a couple things you like. One, I like the Ghost Zapper up top. in terms of a sire. The other thing is the dam, Theory of Change, has actually produced a lot of dirt route winners. 5 of the 10 foals, or I'm sorry, not 5 of the 10 foals, of her foals, there have been 5 out of 10 winners going 2 turns on the dirt. So she's produced some nice dirt horses. They've not necessarily been at this level, but it's good to see the pedigree pushes a little bit more distance. And the other thing is Dr. Venkman's, he's not your typical California sprint horse. He's not a speedball. He's a horse that can rate, can sit off the pace. Now, he's got considerably good speed here. He's second back from a layoff. And if you look at it, I have to say, our good friend Gino Picola pointed this out to me. He's the only horse that's kind of coming in on a regular race cycle. Literally every other horse is coming on off of a layoff. Express Train hasn't run since April. The number 2 horse for Doug O'Neill hasn't run since last year. Arabian Night hasn't run since November. And even Newgrange hasn't run in several months after getting a little bit of a surgery, I heard, on some of his breathing issues. So, at least Dr. Venkman's fresh. He's second back from the layoff. He's a good horse. He's a grade 2 placed. And I don't know if he can get the distance. It could be an interesting horse that could track Arabian Night. Maybe if Arabian Night tires a little bit, he's a horse that could benefit. Again, not a race that I'm that thrilled about playing, but if you're trying to beat Arabian Night, that's the way I try to do it.
Yeah, honestly, the horse I was a little bit interested in was the 5 Newgrange.
Sure.
And that's one. He's coming off a pretty long layoff, just not as long as Arabian Night, but hasn't raced since March. And has 2 grade 2 wins in there against a couple decent horses. Nothing I think as tough as what Arabian Night has seen, or even as good as Arabian Night. But I thought he was kind of an interesting one in here. The problem is that I just think maybe Arabian Night's just faster early, and I think Newgrange has kind of done his best going wire to wire. I mean, the San Pasquale last year, did sit kind of that tracking trip and was able to win, but I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to win against a horse like Arabian Night in here. And
yeah, I would agree with that. And I think that he's an honest horse. He's a good horse, but he's not an elite horse necessarily. Newgrange. He's more of a grinder as well, even when he's up on the front end. And I think that he's a horse. I mean, at least you're getting a nice little price there at 6-1 on him. To try to beat him. And he likes a mile and a 16th, we should say. He's good at this distance in particular. So this would fit him well, but hard to make too much of a case here. Interesting to see the plot though for optics there.
Yeah, so the standard plot's got Arabian Night basically loose on the lead, and going to be tough to catch there. I think if you looking at the plot, like I said, if you were going to take a shot, I think Dr. Venkman makes a bunch of sense in the standard plot. And then if you look at the surface to distance plot, right, you see Newgrange down here in this Q3 area. I tend to think this Q3 area is a little bit of like no man's land. You can win from here, but generally you win from here if all the horses up in the Q1 spot are just very, very cheap, right? Because this is kind of a horse that basically breaks out of the gate pretty well, and then settles into second or third position, and then has a little bit of kick there. But looking at the standard plot, I mean, Arabian Night just looks way faster earlier. I mean, he looks faster on the surface of distance plot. So like you're really looking for Newgrange to have that tracking trip. But it really does look like he's going to be up against it. I mean, they have him as above on the plot, so they think that he's got basically an above average kind of grade on where he kind of plots for this type of race. And if you kind of look at the rest of the horses, there's no one else with an above. You got a couple average pluses there. So I was trying to kind of make a case for him, but you look at I look at optics first. I kind of make an idea on the pace. I kind
Yeah.
of look at the horse I'm interested in, and then I flip over to the PPs. I got the Briz up here, and you really just the Briz kind of tells a different story. Like maybe if he runs back to kind of what he did in the San Antonio, but once again he wasn't going against a horse like
Right.
Arabian Night in that spot. So you're really looking for Arabian Night to throw an absolute dud and you range to kind of take a step forward as a 5-year-old.
Yeah. And
It's kind of hard to see.
it is. And one of the things Baffert mentioned apparently is that Arabian Night has actually been training a little bit more calmly, I guess is a way to say it, that they're kind of getting him to rate and getting him to relax a little bit more, and that he doesn't need to be on the lead. And again, like if Dr. Venkman decides to go out, like Arabian Night could sit second, because that's the other thing is if you look at Arabian Night's running lines, whenever he hasn't gotten to the, I mean, he needs to get to the lead. He's never won from off the pace. So if another horse does try to gun it from the inside and try to beat him to that first turn, that would be a new experience for him and something a little bit different. But again, sounds like Baffert said the horse is kind of relaxing a little bit as he's gotten older, and it looks pretty, looks pretty very tough in this spot, certainly.
Yeah, and if anything, I think the cutback helps Arabian Night in this spot.
Oh, yeah.
Not
Sure.
that I don't think going the classic distance he can't do it. I mean, obviously he won the Pacific Classic last year, but you look at those fractions that he set in the Pacific Classic and the Breeders' Cup Classic. I mean, 45 and 3, 46 and 3. I mean, you put that up in a mile and 16th, and you're loose on the lead. I mean, you're probably gonna the track will carry you the way the speed
Right. I
tends to
mean,
kind of hold out west. So.
right. This is the old life is good model. I mean, in a lot of ways, like just blitz them off their feet early and then just have be loose on the lead and just run the best 6 furlongs you can. And then the track will carry you the rest of the way.
Yeah. The other graded stakes on the card is the Bing Crosby, the Grade 1 Bing Crosby here. And we're going to be going a 6 furlongs here for 3-year-olds and up. And, I thought this was a little bit more interesting of a race. And you just got maybe one of the coolest horses that are running right now in the Chosen Vron as your morning line favorite, 6-5 on the morning line. And this is such a great story because he for the longest time just kept on running in those state bred races. It seemed like they were kind of, I don't know, kind of protecting him, just running him in the state bred races over and over and over again. And then they ran him into Bing Crosby and just absolutely, ran just a great race there last year. Got a Grade 1 on his resume. They ran him in the BC Sprint. I think there he was definitely a little bit in over his head. But then I guess my question with him is, all right, you have a Grade 1 sprinter and you're going right back to the state bred well.
Yeah.
They run him back 2 more races in state bred. They run him in the San Carlos, which I think is I think a more more apt spot than what I would have thought going back to state bred. I'm just, he reminds me a little bit of another horse I think we're going to talk about a little bit later, Skelly.
Yeah, that's a good
And,
comparison. Yeah.
like, I think the trainer knows something, that he's got a very good horse, but maybe not he's got a great horse, but he doesn't have
Yeah.
a world beater. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I feel like they've been really putting him in great spots. And I think maybe they took a shot in that Bing Crosby and, obviously worked out for him. But I think they must have known like we got away with one there because it feels like they've still been pretty conservative with the horse. And not to say that there's anything wrong with picking up checks, especially state bred checks, right? You get bonuses, you get all kinds of stuff. I would absolutely love to be one of Chosen Vron's owners, right? But I think in this spot, I'm going to be against. As much as I love this horse, I think it's such a cool horse. Something smells fishy with the way this horse has been campaigned, and I understand it's similar to last year where he was running in all those state breds, but that graded stakes was I think his first Might have been his first or second try in graded stakes company, and he won. You would have thought that you would have seen him, start dancing all the big dances, but they brought him to Breeders' Cup Sprint, and then they kind of went back to, hey, maybe we need to keep this one in state bred company. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of just not as, I guess, not as high on him as I was last year, especially because now for sure, I mean, he's your morning line favorite. And so I'm definitely looking elsewhere here for my pick. So what about you, Matthew?
I mean, I think you make some great points about the chosen Braun, and he is, he is what he is. He's a great Calbred. He got that grade 1 and got another grade 3, and you got to tip your cap. And I think I don't know if they're trying to hide him to some extent, if that's maybe not quite the right terminology, but I also wonder there's like a balance, because it's like, okay, maybe they don't want to run against open company and they don't want to run against like the big graded stakes. The other side is to say Eric Kruljack's running this horse pretty regularly, and like they run him back, every month or so. So he's an active horse, and in that regard, he's kind of an old school horse that like just shows up every month. And maybe a little bit, it's more damning about the state of California racing that there really aren't a lot of big grade 1 or grade 2 dirt sprint races for him to be in. And the way to keep him active is just to run him in these listed stakes and Calbred races, knowing that you're going to pick up a check, you're going to keep the horse fresh, and you're going to have him ready to go for then when you do take another big shot in a grade 1. But listen, he's an awesome horse. I echo everything you said about, I'd love to own him. I'd love to just be around him. I'm completely against him in this race as well. I don't like him at all. I think this Bing Crosby field is much more loaded than last year's Bing Crosby field. It feels like these are much tougher horses that he's running against. And then there's 5 or 6 horses, I think, that have a legit shot in this race, depending on what trips play out and how.
Yeah. And, I think my top picks end up being this 3 straight no chaser. And this is just a horse that has got speed, right? And I love speed. I mean, we're talking 21 and 4 speed.
Could you tell me the letter and the number next to straight no chaser?
Oh yeah, we got an E8 here. We got the old 3 cherry special.
Where's the cherries?
We got the old 3 cherry special here. Dan Blacker has run this horse in some. He's run this horse all over the country. Actually,
yeah.
He started this horse out on the turf. Started running. Ran him in the Malibu. Then got a 3rd place in the Palos Verdes. I think it's the race at Santa Anita. And then he sent him over to Pimlico, won a race there, won a race at Oaklawn, sent him to Aqueduct, and finished 4th in that run happy. And he's coming back here, and he's the speed of the speed in this race. And the way that Del Mar has been playing, and you got to watch the tide apparently. If we get another low tide, you got to send it in on a straight no chaser. But I think he's going to play catch me if you can here. And I think besides a chosen Vron, the other kind of tracking type horse that I think is got a really good shot in here is the 6 Close the Game Sugar. And this is an Adam Rice horse. Apparently shipping this horse out west, which I thought was just kind of super interesting. This is a horse that won at a huge price in the Mahoney last year, I believe around 20 to 1 on the turf. They tried him at Kentucky Downs. He went back to his stomping grounds at Presque Isle. And I think it's interesting that he ships this horse out west instead of staying, kind of staying in Saratoga, where I know he's had a ton of success. I mean, this horse has won twice at Saratoga, albeit both times on the turf. But ran this horse on the dirt at Churchill, had great success there, and he had both times that he won had that nice tracking trip, which I think is going to be the trip he's going to get here. And I think you're going to get a pretty fair price. You get 5-1 on the morning line here. You have the chosen Vron, who I think is going to take a bunch of money. You have Juan Hernandez riding a Bob Baffert horse that's like 15-1 on the morning line. That horse is going to take money just because they're going to see Juan and Bob. Like, I
Yeah.
think you're going to get a really, really fair price on this horse. You get Umberto Rispoli getting on board for Adam Rice here, a jockey that really, really knows how to ride at this track. I think that of the tracking type horses, this is the one I want. I think this is the one that's going to get first run on the speed. So I'm gonna hit it with a 1-2 punch. I'm gonna go with the speed, who I think a speed of the speed, which is a 3 straight no chaser, and I'm gonna use close the game sugar here, the 6.
Yeah. It's too bad there's only two of us because I have the exact. I couldn't agree more with everything you just said. But so I'll say a couple of things about each horse that you didn't mention, and then I'll talk about one or two others that I think are maybe a little bit less interesting for me, but others might be more interested in. So straight no chaser. Listen, I was there at Aqueduct when he ran in the Run Happy. That race was over the second it started. He missed the break from the inside post position, and his MO is pretty straightforward. If he gets to the lead, he's going to win. And, he had to really go at it to get, he broke terribly, had to really go and spend a lot of energy getting up onto the lead in that Run Happy and then faded late, which, by the way, was coming back from nearly a 1-year layoff. Now you're second back from that. If he breaks more cleanly, obviously is a little further outside. I think it makes a ton of sense. In this regard, I like the price at 6-1 as well. And when you talk about close the game sugar, I agree with you. It's interesting this horse goes to Del Mar because if you look 2 back, this horse beat Skelly and beat Skelly pretty easily in a listed stakes at Churchill. Skelly is your 6-5 morning line favorite that we're going to talk about in a second in the Alfred G. Vanderbilt. So what the hell would close the game sugar be if he was in the Alfred G. Vanderbilt? He'd be 4-5 at that rate. So, it's something to just think about. And you look at who he beat as well. He beat Tejano Twist in that race. In the next race, he beat Hoist the Gold. I mean, he's beaten some very, very nice horses that are graded stakes winners. And I think, again, you're right. The tracking trip makes a lot of sense. And just to put a pin in how the Del Mar track is playing right now, I know it's a limited sample size, but 88% of dirt sprint winners have been leading at the half-mile mark thus far at Del Mar. So if you just get out up front, the track is going to carry you home at this point. So I think those two make a ton of sense. If I was going to talk about another, I think it's fair to talk about a horse that was a little bit of a punchline at one time, and that's Happy Jack. That's a horse that, was, like I said, a punchline in the Kentucky Derby, ran back in the Preakness, no chance. I mean, just showed nothing in those 2 races. But Doug O'Neill then cuts the horse back. And son of a gun, if you don't see this horse starting to turn in some efforts. And 2 back in the Kona Gold finishes second to Chosen Vron and runs a career best speed figure. And you wonder, well, is that real? Well, he runs back and runs almost the exact same number next time out while beating Dr. Vakeman, who I was just talking about in the last race. So, he's an interesting horse that's been a little bit of a reclamation project for O'Neill, and he's gotten him back and firing on pretty good cylinders. Now you're not getting much of a price, 3-1 on that horse, and maybe that's the issue with Happy Jack. But he's another one who, he can sit off the pace. He can track and come and off the pace. He did it back at Churchill back last year, or 2 years ago, I should say. So he can do it. And then, maybe this is a jumping off point to talk about if there's any interest at all in you on Jackstown and just taking 15-1 on Baffert on the far outside and just the Baffert Juan Hernandez special and just this horse like blitzes the field or something like that.
I mean, very, very interesting, right? Whenever you see Bob Baffert at double digits,
right.
Even if you see him double digits on a turf, I'm like, wait a second. You're kind of just like you get a little interested, and then you see Juan Hernandez up on top of it.
Yeah,
I mean they only win at 42%. It's so it is a bit crazy. And Brisnet really, really liked that last out effort. I haven't looked at other figures. I will tell you, as much as I like the pace numbers, the raw speed figure. Sometimes you can just take it or leave it. It's a computer generated number. I feel like sometimes it gets pulled out of a rabbit's hat, like pulling a rabbit out of a hat. Like I don't understand where the numbers come from sometimes because like I'll look at like Bayer, and I'll be like, oh, well, this horse must be the fastest. And nope, this horse is 20 points slower than another horse. What in the world is going on here? So, I don't know what this figure looks like on other, I guess um, more reputable figures, maybe we'll say. But the nine plots out kind of in that Q2 no man's land that we were talking, our Q3 no man's land I was talking about a little bit before, which is right where the Chosen Brawn is. So, I mean, I think if you really think that the Chosen Brawn maybe is in here with a really big shot, I do think you might need to look a little bit at the nine because Optics at least thinks they're going to get similar trips. Obviously, you see Straight No Chaser up here in Q1 as a small little circle. It's your speed or your speed, and then you got Close the Game Sugar sitting up here with that tracking trip. So and Close the Game Sugar once again is above average on the plot, above average on class. Where you look at Jackstown and Jackstown. The biggest thing or biggest negative I think you can say about him is he hasn't gone against anybody remotely close as good as some of these other horses. You see it reflected. I mean, you just look. I mean, he's got an optional claimer win last time out. But and you look at some of the horses these other horses have been running against, and it's clear as day that this is definitely a huge step up in class for him. So and I just don't think he went 22 and 44 and 3 last time out, just off and got the lead, but I don't know, man. Straight No Chaser's gone 21 and 4, so I think he's just a little bit faster. So I think it's gonna be a little tough for him, but I think interesting underneath, maybe a horse you key in second and third and an exactor try, and kind of spice that up a little bit if you just want to toss Chosen Front completely out.
Yeah, it's funny. When I was looking at DRF, and he gets a 95 buyer speed figure last time out for that effort, and that is a little bit below what some of the others are, but in the ballpark, especially if you take a step forward next time out, because that was a significant layoff he had from July 22 to June 24, almost 2 years. But in the closer look section, Scott Shapiro had a very funny note, I thought, for this horse, which is he closes his thoughts by saying, must be doing extremely well if Baffert is willing to take on grade one foes at this point. And then he goes, unwilling to let him beat me. And so that all just kind of cracked me up and kind of, I think, typifies like the kind of struggle that people are going to have with this horse of like, am I really leaving Bob Baffert, Juan Hernandez on a lightly raced horse off of my ticket? And yeah, it's going to be a big ask, and that's a really tough ask for this horse and a young horse that hasn't faced anywhere near this competition or anywhere near this level of speed that he's going to see on the inside of him. And so, I think using him underneath makes a lot of sense. That's how I'll probably try to use him is pairing up an exacta, pairing up in a try, and using the 3 and the 6 predominantly up top.
I see Uncle Sully said he got bingo, and I know he said this a while ago, but he said Capitan over 25 minutes late. Well, he's going to be over 90 minutes late because he's not going to show up tonight. Matthew with the logical contrarian pick against Arabian Night. There you go. No Nick Feldman bomb, so that was the bomb right there. And Josh on the E8, despite being a my racehorse owned horse. So yeah, that I think you need one more for bingo. Bingo's a 5 thing, but maybe if you're playing Keno,
don't worry, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah, let's move on over to the Vanderbilt here. So we're switching gears. Yeah, the Del Mar card looks pretty good. the stakes races, I think that first one leaves a little bit to be desired. But I think there's some opportunity in that late sequence, especially if you play against the chosen Vron like Matthew and I are going to. But yeah, this the Vanderbilt, very strategically, I think, placed as race 6. Which leaves it out of a couple of the. I think there's a middle pick 5 here, so I think there's a you can still get in trouble with this race if you want to, but I, it's only a 6-horse race, but you get 6 to 5 Skelly in here, who I think, like I mentioned before, you can draw a lot of parallels to the chosen Vron,
Yeah.
because Skelly was one. I forget what race it was, Matthew. And I don't remember if you said. And I have a note written up here.
I love it too.
Candy ass horse, because I forgot what race it was he won. It might have been the Count Fleet this year, and he
Okay.
won that race, and he won it. I mean, by 3 lengths over Tejano Twist, who's no slouch.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, this horse is going to Churchill. They're going to run this horse in, either the Churchill Downs or one of the sprint races that they run. They're going for it with this horse. And then they run it at another listed stakes at Oaklawn instead of going to Churchill. And I was like, that's weird. You would have think that this horse is prepped and ready to go, and then the Aristides comes up, which is another kind of softish spot. Then he loses to the horse that we just talked about, the Adam Rice horse, the 6, close the game Sugar, and maybe I gave this horse a little bit too much credit coming out of that Count Fleet, because I thought this was the next Steve Asmussen, big name sprinter. Like, he looked super, super tough. And then, I kind of look at the way he's campaigned, and maybe, he's being a little bit more realistic with this horse. But now he shows up in this spot off a loss to a horse that's not even running here, is running in another grade 1, but halfway across, or all the way on the other side of the country. And this just kind of reeks a little bit of, they kind of did the same thing last year, where they kind of avoided all the big summer races. I don't know if something went wrong or what happened, because he didn't run from May till December, and they kind of started avoiding the tough races again. And I don't know. I can't get behind this horse at 6 to 5. This is they're just, something doesn't feel right. As impressive as his horses looked, I'm gonna fade here again, and maybe this one I feel like is a little bit tougher pill to swallow than the chosen Vron was for me, because I really, really like this horse. I remember I was even telling Caleb, I'm like, I think this horse is going to win everything this year. Like, he looks so good, and didn't even win a listed stakes at Churchill. So I'm starting to maybe question it a little bit.
Yeah, I think you and I see this pretty similarly in the regard of, I think Skelly is a little bit of a puzzling horse, because he's a horse that I feel like has been in the ether of horse racing for quite a while. And I feel like if you were to ask people, like, how many graded stakes wins does Skelly have, they would probably give you an inflated number, because it feels like this horse has been running and winning these races. But like you said, when you go through and look at the PPs, they're all just listed stakes at Oaklawn for the most part. And, I will got to give the Connections credit. They went over to, and ran in the Riyadh Dirt Sprint, and ran over there, and he ran well. But one of the things that started to happen is he breaks slow now. And he always broke on top. And now he's breaking a half step slow. And he's using a lot of energy, just like we talked about with Straight No Chaser in the previous race, using a lot of energy to get up onto the lead. And that kind of bit him last time out. when Close the Game Sugar was able to come from off the pace and get the win. And he's facing, I listen, this is not the deepest grade one by any stretch, but he's got a couple of hot horses he's got to deal with to his inside in Subrogate and Baby Yoda, who look like world beaters at this point in their respective races. Now, I flip it around. I like Subrogate more than Baby Yoda, but my dad's going to start sending you Christmas presents because you got Baby Yoda over me. So, but I think those two make a lot more sense. And Subrogate, listen, I know he's got to switch off Lasix, but he's run off Lasix before and won off Lasix. He has never done anything but win when going one turn. And he is a horse that it just keeps getting faster. And those speed figures are coming back as legitimate because you're seeing the horses that are finishing behind him coming back and running that same figure next time out or something very close to it. So, it's been a huge ascension for him, but he's clearly a very, very good horse and should be stalking right off the pace of Skelly in this race. So I like Subrogate quite a bit with Irata board in particular, and for 7-2. But you like Baby Yoda, so I'll let you talk about that one.
I mean, case in point, this race is in Saratoga.
Sometimes it's that simple.
And I mean, I don't know many people who love Saratoga more than Baby Yoda. I think love Saratoga.
I would say it's like Andy Serling and Baby Yoda.
And Baby Yoda. I mean, basically the same thing. Maybe we'll just start. Maybe start calling Andy Baby Yoda. See how he takes that one. But yeah, I mean, last time out, I kind of was looking at how he's kind of been running, and he ran a nice race at Aqueduct at a huge price, and I feel like he got kind of a little disrespected at the board in that True North. Maybe people forgot that this was being run at Saratoga, where he just ran an absolute hole in the wind. He's only 6, right? So like, I think he's still got another good season or two of him running at his top. And I mean, he ran, not necessarily, he didn't run back to that just absolutely insane figure, but he ran very, very well last time out. And he's coming right back here to Saratoga, a track he loves. Going this distance, I mean, he's got 4 wins, 2 seconds and 2/3 out of 9 tries. He's only missed the board once going this distance. He's only missed the board once at Saratoga. He's got 4 wins in 6 tries. Yeah, I got Baby Yoda as my A. I think Subrogate, he's kind of the up and comer, right? He's relatively lightly raced for what the other horses here have done, and this is his first step up into graded stakes company. But man, that last race, I'll tell you what, man, won that about as impressively as you can win a 6.5 for a long sprint. Penn State Scott saying that the hardest working man is subbing in for Mark. So, so you got. I do love how he assumes you're subbing in for Mark and not Caleb. He assumes you're subbing in for Mark and not for the model.
I don't have the looks. I have the beard, but so does Mark. So I'm in upstate New York, so that's why I'm subbing in for Mark.
Yeah, and but like looking at let me pull up the optics plot here. Looking at this, obviously Skelly, you got looking as a really, really nice Q1 circle here, but obviously we're looking at all of his races here, right? And what have we started to notice with Skelly? He's just breaking a little bit slow constantly. Not to say he's not going to get the lead. I think he's still going to get the lead here, but how hard is he going to work to get that lead? And you see right here, Subrogate sitting just off as that square. I think he's going to get that really, really good tracking trip, and so does Optics. They got this marked as an above plus on the plot. They think that he's just going to get an absolute dream trip here. So I think he's going to be tough. I mean, honestly, Baby Yoda does not look great on the plot, but I wish there was a way I could filter this to only show Saratoga
Saratoga
races,
races.
because he would probably look immense. He would look absolutely immense.
He'd be a massive quadrant 1 square. Like
It would literally, the entire optics plot would just be a big old square that just was Baby Yoda. It'd just be a big old yellow square. Yeah, Subrogate. I mean, I have him written down as a B. He's probably going to play more like an A for me. But I just wanted to kind of differentiate that it was, kind of like my second pick here. I think Baby Yoda is my top pick, but I'll probably end up using them both equally in the in horizontals. One horse we didn't talk about, Nakatomi, who's 5-2 on the morning line, is a horse that I've always kind of felt is kind of tough to to figure out, because I feel like anytime I like him, I think he's in a good spot. He just absolutely does not run. And then when when I'm finally like fed up and against him, and I'm like, what the heck? Like I'm not. Why am I betting this horse still? Even though it's usually an optional claiming race, he goes and he wins. So I feel like he's coming back from Dubai. He ran in the Golden Shaheen. He ran third. Wasn't really in it whatsoever. I mean, he lost by seven lengths in that race. But you're really kind of going back to find a time he won. And that last time he won was here at Saratoga, but was in the slop. And if there's one thing I've kind of always felt about this horse, is this horse absolutely loves the slop.
He does.
He's got 3 wins and 4 tries on the slop. So I think this comes up it comes up fast. I'm not interested whatsoever. But David's got him as 5-2 on the morning line. Do we really think he's going to be that short and take that much money?
I don't think so. This was a tough line to make, I think, but I don't think he's going to be 5-2. I do think he's a horse that irrationally takes money, though, for a horse that doesn't really win very much. And he is a horse that always runs well, but not well enough, and gives people hope that maybe next time's the time. And it never is. And, whether he's running against listed stakes or grade 1 company, he runs about the same race, which is usually not quite good enough. So I have a hard time at 5-2. I think David probably underestimates the power of Baby Yoda at Saratoga, because I think that horse is going to take some money. And it reminds me of when Baby Yoda first kind of broke onto the scene at Saratoga, which was back in 2022. And when he really kind of, or I should say back in 2021, when he, God, I can't believe it was that long ago, but when he really, took off and, ran that huge 114 Beyer speed figure. And I remember the race before that he won at Saratoga was a 50,000 starter allowance, and he was a 3-2 favorite. And I remember Andy, I was watching at home, Saratoga Live, and I remember Andy was indignant that this horse was the 3-2 favorite. Indignant that he was a 3-2 favorite. And he's like, there's nothing about this horse that should make him be the favorite, blah, 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 blah. And he wasn't wrong until Lafitte, the host, turned around and said, Andy, I think there are just a lot of Star Wars fans out there. And it's like, yeah, sometimes the horse is just taking money because people like to bet on Baby Yoda. And I think now he's become kind of the Saratoga darling. And we've seen horses like that over the years. Like a horse like Casa Creed would always run really well up in Saratoga. There are certain horses that just love it up here, and the people love them, and they start betting them a lot. And so that's a horse that's just such a fan favorite that it's hard to see him not taking a ton of money. And I actually think it might lead to a horse like Silvergate being maybe a little bit of a better bet.
Shoot the glass. Funny story. My wife, I don't know what it was, but one year she's like, we should just wear pajamas at Christmas.
Yeah,
like, we're just gonna wear pajamas. And, I remember my sister-in-law, I think at one point, like, I was like, hey, let's we're gonna do pajamas for Christmas. Like, everyone come over, wear pajamas. And so I think it was like a one-time thing. And after that one time, my wife and I were like, fuck it, we're gonna wear pajamas every year. We don't care, right? So this year, every year it seems like she buys like a pair of pajama pants for us, matching pajama pants. And this year she bought or this last year, she bought us matching shirts, which were I think it was Nakatomi Plaza
Oh
Christmas
God.
party
Yeah,
shirts
yeah.
to
I love it.
wear. So yeah. Yeah, I love this horse whenever it gets sloppy. Don't want anything to do with him in this spot. Anything else in this race?
No, I think we hit the big things. I mean, I'll be playing against Skelly, and I think we're both going to be trying to use the same two horses to beat him.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on to the pick five here, and we're gonna start with a 5.5 furlong sprint here, maiden special weight, and it looks like your morning line favorite is going to be the one Scarlet Poppy, and I ended up not using. You got Flavian Pratt and Wesley Ward here teaming up. And I went a couple of different directions here. I immediately basically tossed the chalk. I didn't get like super creative because obviously I'm using the four Aerosol, who is probably gonna be your second choice here. Chad Brown and Irad Ortiz teaming up here. This is a horse that they tried to get on the turf twice last year at Saratoga, and much like I don't know. I mean, it just got washed off the turf both times. And sometimes you just get that lucky, I guess, at Saratoga.
Last year it was every day. It felt like this
Yeah.
year we've been luckier. Knock on wood. So
I still laugh at and nothing got washed off, so it's funny. But there was I was with Andrew and we were just talking before. I think it was like a Sunday of racing, and Andy says something like, "There are going to be a lot of unhappy people because it's not raining today." And literally within 10 seconds of him saying that, it starts raining.
yeah,
And luckily it stopped. It stopped after
yeah,
about 5 minutes.
yeah,
But Andrew was just like, "You got to be kidding me, Andy. Why would you put that out into the world?" Luckily, like I said, it stopped,
yeah.
but
I
that
remember
was
that. I remember exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah. Because it was one of those days. Like anybody who spent any time in Saratoga knows about this. I look out the window of my office and it's gorgeous, and then 30 seconds later, I turn back and people have umbrellas out, and I'm like, "What the hell just happened?" And then I walk out and I realize like there's one giant, gray storm cloud overhead, and everything else is clear. And once that passes, everything's fine. And but yeah, it was just. Last year it felt like if it rained anywhere in upstate New York, it was raining on Saratoga's track. I know you make a joke. I think you made a joke about this, that if it rains anywhere in Indiana, it rains at Hawthorne and or at Horseshoe
Horseshoe
Indy.
Indianapolis. Yeah.
Yeah, like if it's anywhere in the state of Indiana, it's there. And
Yeah.
last year it was like that there.
Yeah, Andrew likes to say if it's raining anywhere, it's raining in Shelbyville. Like I think it's Shelbyville is where is
Yeah, it
where
is
um
Shelbyville.
where
Yeah, yeah,
Indiana or
yeah.
Horseshoe
You're right.
Indiana is, but yeah, no, I love the four in this spot, and I think obviously Chad's been trying to get this one on the turf. You see Irad get a board here. I mean, that's his first call when it comes to any of these turf horses. You look at this breeding, you got Mendelssohn on top, has been pretty successful on the turf. Not necessarily first time, only 11% first time out, but 13% overall. And yeah, I think that they've just been really, really trying to get this one on the turf. They're finally going to be able to get this on the turf. And when you kind of look at some of the other races that this horse has been in against, as I pull this up on my other screen. Oh, where'd it go? Oh, I think he's run some pretty good races on the dirt, and he's gonna he plots out really well on the standard plot. Obviously, we got a surface change here, so you're kind of like got to use your imagination, I think, a little bit. Like hope that he's still gonna show that kind of turn of foot a little bit the the turf, but. I mean, I'll trust Chad to get this horse around the green stuff. And the other horse I'm going to use is the 3 Mac Tamor. And this is one that they were able to get on the turf first time out at Gulfstream, and he ran the best race of his career at a huge price. they brought him right back and they ran him on a synthetic. Wasn't as good of an effort there. Seemed kind of flat. They note some trouble in that trip. And then they come back to Ellis Park, trying to get him on the grass again, gets washed off, and he just runs third. I think getting him back on the turf and sprinting, I think you're going to see him kind of return back to what he ran that first time, and maybe as long as he improves off that, I think he's going to be very, very tough in here. And like I said, if you look at his races, he has shown that an early speed since kind of moving or running a couple of times. I mean, that 5 furlong sprint at Gulfstream, they went 20-4 for that in that first quarter. And yeah, he was 4 lengths off, but I mean they went 20-4, right? So I think he's got that 21 and change speed, 22 speed, and so I think he'll be kind of tracking. I don't think he's going to be as far back as maybe you look at that Gulfstream race. You're like, oh, he was seventh. Like I don't think he's going to be seventh here. I think he's going to be a little bit closer. So I think he's going to have a nice tracking trip. I think the 4 Arasao looks really good. I mean, like I said, the 1 Scarlet Poppy looks like he's got a bit of speed. Hasn't gotten the lead, but I don't know. I see a race like that last one where he just kind of merry-go-round. Got second, was sitting off a length, and then just never really made up any ground. They went 22-3, 45 flat, and I don't know. That just doesn't do anything for me. Like I didn't see any improvement, kind of from there. Horse looks like he's been working really well since he's been up here. So maybe the workout report's going to come back and he's just going to look like an absolute dime. But at least for now, I don't have him on any of my tickets.
Yeah, it's interesting because I really generally dislike the inside rail for horses at 5.5 at Saratoga. It's just a tough spot to be in. And now some of that is applicable to your overall speed. And if you're fast enough to escape that, then great. And this is a horse that, is shortening up to the shortest distance of her career and going 5.5 as opposed to going 1 mile and a 16th or 6. So, Flavian stays aboard. That's certainly a positive. The workouts have looked very, very sharp for Wes. And so that's, a horse that's formidable for sure. Like you, both the 3 and the 4 really stood out. I really like the 3 quite a bit as a fact. But I think you made all the points that are necessary to make on the 4 and the 3 for that matter, and really covered why I like both of them in this spot. I'll mention 2 other horses, though, just to kind of talk about maybe if you're trying to beat Scarlet Poppy and maybe a couple of others to consider. I'm kind of interested in this Linda Rice first-timer, Tipple, the number 2 horse. And this, Linda, you don't think of Linda, first of all, you don't really think of Linda turf sprinting. You certainly don't think of Linda turf sprinting in maiden special weight races. But, she's had some success first time out. This horse is training like a rocket ship, too, down at Belmont and then coming up here to Saratoga. So this horse is training well. The great pedigree for turf success. The dam has produced a number of turf winners, turf route winners, turf sprint winners, has produced 3 first out winners overall out of her 7 race foals. So, there's plenty of precocity there. Constitution is always a sire I like in terms of first out success. So at 12-1, that horse is a little bit interesting. And it would certainly be an upset, would be a little bit of a shock to see, but the works just really pop. And there's pedigree to suggest this horse could run well first time out. The other horse that I'll mention is a little bit further to the outside. And, I think you could maybe make a case for the Bill Mott horse, but that one just has not shown anything. And it's just such a deep closer that I just don't know really what to make of that one. But the horse that I'm maybe a little bit interested in is the Jeremiah Engelhard horse, Echo Baby at 10-1, the number 9 horse. And I say this partially because Englehart has had a very good start to the Saratoga meet. He's got 3 winners during the meet, including Mo Plex, who won the Sanford Stakes at opening weekend. So he's gotten some live runners. He had another very good maiden win the following week. So he's had some winners up here, which is good to see. And this horse is second back from a pretty significant layoff, coming out of that same Scarlet Poppy race, and it was a little hard to handle and didn't have the best trip of that day. And now gets Kendrick Carmouche up on the mount, or I should say back up on the mount. One of the things I can guarantee is Kendrick's going to get a little bit more speed out of this horse than Dylan did last time, in my opinion. Draws a little further outside, and I think this horse has an opportunity to move forward in the second start off the bench. And I think, as a little bit of a price could be interesting. Again, those inside post positions can be a little uncomfy sometimes in turf sprints, and this one might get the right type of trip.
Yeah, and I still think that when you want to get a horse out of the gate clean in New York, you want Kendrick aboard. And
100%.
Yeah, I generally if you see Kendrick rate a horse, it's because he was told to. So I love that. I love seeing a horse that maybe is run a little bit better, getting out a little bit earlier. You see the last time out didn't get out of the gate so fast. Going right back to that, definitely could see some improvement there. Anything else in this race you want to talk about?
Not really. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, these turf sprints are so fascinating. We just had obviously the Caress today, and one of the things I will say is, and we saw it, I think, again today. I need to go back and look at the charts to see how far back Don't Look Back at All was. But I will say half, but prior to today, so I can't say for today, but half of the winners in turf sprints at Saratoga have closed from more than 3 lengths back at the 3/8 mark. So closers are doing well on this turf course, sprinting. So it's not necessarily speed of the speed all the time. And sometimes you want to have a horse that's coming a little further off.
All right. Race 9, we got 1.16 on the inner turf. Excuse me, your morning line favorite is going to be the 12 risk tolerance for Chad Brown and Manny Franco. I have a question mark next to him. I wonder why. But we got got 3-1 on him. West Hollywood at 4-1, Main Beach at 5-1. Navy SEAL at 5-1, and then you basically got your price on everybody else. Pirate is in here as an MTO at 6-1. I kind of looked at the 12 risk tolerance. Won a maiden race, first time asking, but I thought that race came back pretty slow on Brisnet, and I kind of had a hard time. Like, I know Chad will move this horse up, and this horse will run, obviously a little bit better in this spot. But man, I see that Briz figure, even though it's his first time out, and I'm just trying to look elsewhere, and I ended up with, believe, 4 other horses in this spot. No, 3 other horses. I think your second choice, West Hollywood here, shown speed in both of his starts. Obviously the maiden breaker on the Churf at Churchill. R.I.P. Churf.
R.I.P. Pour one out for the Churf.
Goodness,
we're not going to see it again until 2025, and that's great, right? It's pretty awesome.
I don't understand what the heck they're doing over there, but who knows why Churchill does what it does. I saw that they're renovating. I saw that they're renovating again. For the one time a year where they actually need it, but good for them. You get Flavian Pratt, you get the better French jock aboard here, and I'll tell you what, man. I always joke about how much I dislike Flavian Pratt because of how much money he cost me by claiming foul against Maximum Security. I know I'm going way back and holding a grudge for something that he kind of really isn't at fault for, but still, um, I don't think there's anyone in the country riding better than him right now. Uh,
It's elite. Yeah.
it's absolutely nuts, and I really wish, the horse obviously is got talent here, and I believe plots out pretty well in this spot. He's kind of sitting in that Q3. But if you notice the difference between him and some of these other Q3 squares is when you look above, you don't really see much up there. So um, uh, he's going to kind of be he's got a good chance of kind of being your leader in this spot, being kind of your de facto leader, and he's got enough of a kick that he might just keep on going when he gets up there. It's not a great plot, it's not a perfect plot, but um, when you don't see anybody really up in Q1 that you're interested in, obviously the 13 Pirate, you just assume he's not there because he's an MTO, and
Yeah.
you just that's going to move West Hollywood up a little bit on this plot. And so I think he looks really, really strong in this spot. I think, yeah, I think there's a chance that he just goes wire to wire. And, Flavian is one of the few jocks I feel like is very versatile. He's like a no knock against Jose Ortiz, but I feel like he's like a better Jose Ortiz. Like he's just as versatile as Jose is.
Yeah.
And Jose is very good, I think, on the front end. But I think Flavian is just as good as him, and he's also very good, rating a horse and taking him back. Whereas, like, I think a guy like, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, just look at his ride on White Beam in the Diana. I mean, that was a masterclass of somehow intimidating Dylan Davis from going up in the lead, truly baffling stuff, and then B, just knowing how to control the pace. And I mean, I remember that when they went by the first time, when they went by me on the home stretch, and he was just out there with White Beam, I turned to the person next to me. I said, "This thing's over." He won that race in the first 150 yards, and so he's got that ability if the pace sets up, and drawing a little further outside, he's going to see what everybody else is doing, and is going to be able to get over there.
Yeah, but he's my top pick in this spot. But there's two others I like in here. Moonlight for Todd Pletcher and Flo. And I think if you're looking for somebody to kind of sit that tracking trip, not be too far out, I think Moonlight has shown. If you look at his race 2 back at Keeneland, if we can kind of get closer to that versus last time where he just absolutely, I mean, he was nowhere near the front end and just never really was into the race whatsoever. But I think if he can be, if Flo can be a little bit aggressive, which I hate saying that, but if Flo can be aggressive, I think, and kind of get Moonlight into the race a little bit, I think he's got a shot here. He's a very, very good price. He's 15-1 on the morning line. When I know I just kind of closed off Optics, but Optics kind of shows him sitting in the Q2, Q4 area, right in the middle of the plot. Looks like one that's going to have, I think, a pretty good trip. If he's good enough, I think he's actually got a shot to win, and you're getting 15-1. And the other horse I'm going to look to is going to be the 4-horse Time Song.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I love using Optics. He does not plot out well in Optics. I really have kind of a bit of a hard time knowing where he's going to kind of sit. But that maiden breaking race 3 back at Gulfstream is the fastest race anyone at this distance has run on Briz. And you're getting JJ aboard. I whenever I see JJ on a horse, I basically I look, right. I'm like, all right, JJ doesn't have to take, he takes 4 or 5 mounts a day. He doesn't have to take, he's getting to the Mike Smith part of his career, right? Okay, why is he on this horse? Is this horse live? He's ridden this horse before. He rode it at Saratoga. And he kind of ran back to that maiden race. So, maybe he's in here a little bit softer of a field. I mean, he might just be good enough, I think, to win here. The par figure for this level here at Saratoga is 86. He's run 289s. I think that puts him right there with the rest of this field. And I think he's another one who, if he's ridden aggressively, I think, and can kind of get, stay in the race, not lose contact with the field, kind of like how he did last time. He was, fifth by 6 lengths that first call. Like, hey, be fifth by 3 lengths this time, and I think maybe we have a little bit of a different story. So I'm going to use the 4, the 5, and the 8 in this spot. Matthew, where did you land?
Yeah, so we definitely have a little bit of overlap. I also really like the 4 quite a bit. That was I just finished doing an episode of Capping the Card, which will be out tomorrow morning with our good friend Craig Milkowski from Timeform. And so nice. He and I sat down and went through all 12 races on Saturday's card. And this was my value pick in this race. I really did like this time zone quite a bit. Part of it too is like the connections. George Weaver on the turf, sure, I'll sign up with that. I mean, you went to talk about the JJ angle, which I agree with. But Weaver had a really good meet last year on the turf, and more than capable with those grass horses that he's got. So I thought this one was quite interesting, and it's also kind of funny that even though we're looking at different metrics, both Beyer and Briz have the race last out and 3 back. It's the exact same number. So for Beyer, it was 78. For Briz, it's 89. But they both, both services basically said, listen, they ran the same race in both those efforts. So I think this one could absolutely be sitting on a nice race. And like you said, might be a little bit closer and definitely formidable. A couple others that I wanted to talk about. One is the number 3 horse, Navy SEAL for Wes Ward with Frankie Dettori aboard. This is a horse that came out of Aidan O'Brien's barn over in Europe, and a horse that was placed into a Group 1 race in France by Aidan at one point, and even picked up Brian Moore on the mount. So the horse was well thought of, at least within the barn. Ran 4th in a Group 2. And, always, I mean, if you go back and look at the track conditions, just I don't know if this horse was very unlucky or what, or maybe liked the heavy turf, but was yielding heavy, yielding soft is what this horse ran over. So has never really gotten on a dry, fast track, or dry, firm track, I should say. So we'll see. Actually ran in the UAE Derby over Maidan behind Forever Young and Panda Gate. We saw Panda Gate actually just come back to win up at Finger Lakes in a stakes race the other day. Hope to see him later this summer at Saratoga. But this horse, then transfers over to Wes, and Ward takes him up to the Canterbury Derby. And of course, that race gets rained off the grass, runs in the mud, runs fine. But the horse is a turf horse. I mean, sired by Dabawi out of a Camelot dam. So, I can imagine this horse is, you look at the workouts, they look very, very good on the turf. So I would imagine that this horse is going to show a little something more than what it has to this point. It's going to get that inside trip. It's getting Lasix for the first time too, which is a big deal for a lot of those former European runners. And then the other horse I'll mention is the number 2 Main Beach, right next door at 5-1. This is the other Chad, if you will. And this is the Chad with Irad up on the mount, which I think matters a little bit. Now you could say this is a C tier Chad horse because it was a Monmouth and Tampa Bay, as you highlight there. What I'll say is this. I feel like, do you remember Bleecker Street? Mm-hmm. I remember I feel like we discounted Bleecker Street for like 8 straight races because we were like, well, it's a Tampa horse for Chad. How good can this horse be? And Bleecker Street just kept winning. I was actually just talking to someone today at Saratoga who was saying about how much how much better condition the Tampa turf course is over the Gulfstream Park turf course. Mm-hmm. And that Chad has started to run more and more of his horses at Tampa Bay Downs over the winter. Maybe not as a result, but they've seen an uptick in the number of Chad Brown entries at Tampa Bay Downs over the last year on the turf. So, interesting. And I also think it's noteworthy. Listen, Chad doesn't have to bring this horse up to Saratoga. You could leave this horse down at Monmouth. There are other races this horse could run in down there. So the fact that you're bringing this horse up and Irad sees fit to ride, those are positive check marks for a horse that otherwise maybe slips through the cracks a little bit. And what I was impressed by was this horse's last effort goes straight to the lead. But, I think this horse can rate and can certainly pass horses from off the pace, has a little bit of versatility. I think Irad's better coming off the pace. So that one is another one that I'm interested in. Could take a lot of money because of the connections. But for me, I really like the 2, 3, 4. That's probably where I'm going mostly in this race.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, like I think the difference with like a horse like Bleecker Street, like the reason I think we were discounting that horse, because that horse is running in stakes races,
Yeah.
We're talking
Right.
optional claimer here. I think there's a little bit more of a leeway. You're getting 5-1. It's the other Chad. It's when those horses show up in grade 2s and they're real short prices, I think.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can help Uncle Sully hit bingo, because we'll just go ahead and mention Chili Flag now as a horse that, just it needs to, that other Chad that just kind of steps up all of a sudden in the Graded Stakes Company. And you're just like, well, what's going on with this horse? And then, Caleb hates him and then he wins a grade 1, just one of those things.
Yeah. It's, man, old Caleb, man.
I feel like Chili Flag's becoming like the new channel maker to some extent. Like, just becoming like a horse that Caleb can't get right with or something.
Well, when Chili Flag started his really good, or the good run of form,
yeah,
Caleb goes, only you and my dad would be on Chili Flag. And yeah, of course, both me and Papa Knight were on Chili Flag on that race. But since then I have not been on the right side of Chili Flags. I've been against the last couple times, but it is what it is. Grade 2, Jim Dandy going a mile in the 8th on the dirt. 3-year-olds here, and you get the return of a couple of big names in Sierra Leone, Seize the Gray, and Fierceness. And Sierra Leone is your even money favorite in this race. First of all, I haven't been paying attention. Are we? Has there been any chatter about any of these horses not running here?
Nope, they're all going to be running.
All right. I absolutely hate Sierra Leone as the even money favorite in this race. I mean, I have absolutely no interest in this horse, and I very much like this horse in the Derby, but I mean, I don't know. I think I've seen enough of this horse. I'm going to be against. And this might be even. This makes me feel even more gross. Matthew, I have 1A.
I think you and I are going to feel gross together.
It's Fierceness.
Yep.
I mean, Fierceness should win this race. I mean, this is like this soft. I mean, this soft field, pace wise. I mean, you have just cheap speed on the front end. I don't think Fierceness needs to get the lead in this spot. I think he's just got to be, if he runs something like that Juvenile where he just lets the speed go and he just kind of sits his tracking trip. I mean, I think that this should, I think he looks really, really good in this spot. I think Sierra Leone, I think the book is out on Sierra Leone and that this horse just does not want to break. And just, I mean, in the Kentucky Derby, broke 11 lengths back. Last time in the Belmont Derby with half the field, broke 8 lengths back. In the Bluegrass where he won, broke 7 lengths back. And all right, maybe on the fairest of fair track, if you're really the best horse, you're going to win like that. But what we've seen at Saratoga, and how Saratoga generally plays, I'm not saying that it's been an absolute just like speed fest, but it's always a plus, I think, to show a little bit of speed at Saratoga. And I just have, they're cutting back to a mile and eighth. It's going to give Sierra Leone even less time to make up some of this ground. I have a very very hard time putting any faith in Sierra Leone at this point. I have Fierceness as my lone A, and the only other horse I had any interest in was Batten Down,
Mm-hmm.
who was a very impressive winner of the Ohio Derby. And I know like you're like, oh goodness, the Ohio Derby. Look at Bill Mott brought this horse along like Bill Mott brings horses along normally.
Yep.
Not how Bill Mott brings horses along when Caleb mispunches a ticket, right? And wins with the firster. No, not like that. We're talking normal Bill Mott. And just brought this horse. It took him 4 tries to break his maiden, but that fourth try won super impressively. Finally, light bulb goes on. They go a
Yep.
classic distance. Horse just lights up. Run him immediately at the Ohio Derby. Beat some nice horses there, and pretty impressively by open lengths, by almost 2 lengths there. So while this is going to be a class test for Batten Down, I think that last race at least puts him in the conversation here. I'll have at least 1 or 2 tickets with Batten Down on it. But I mean, I most of my money is gonna be going through Fierceness, and I feel a little bit gross about it.
So we both feel a little gross, and I want to read you the first 2 sentences of my analysis that I have up on NYRA bets for this race. Just because I don't want people to think, yeah, and the every other, yeah, Penn State Scott, great point. This is the other, and but this is my first 2 sentences. The top 2 choices provide a stark juxtaposition between one, Fierceness, who is brilliant but inconsistent, and the other, Sierra Leone, who is remarkably consistent but is often his own worst enemy. Based upon their prices on the morning line, I am leaning toward Fierceness, which surprises me even as I type this out. So it's like I feel like we're channeling much the same brain in this regard. When he's at his best, there's nobody even close to him in this crop. I mean, that's the reality of the situation with him. I love the short field. I think that the far outside post is perfect for him because it will avoid any traffic issues or any gate issues that he tends to have. There's nobody I trust more on a horse that likes to get forward than Johnny Velasquez. And, the horse is training back to the way we expected him to train. And I got to give Rapoli and Pletcher a lot of credit. When they saw Mindframe was outworking him in the Belmont, they said, something, let's just take a break. We're not even going to try to run this horse in Belmont. Take our time, keep working him. And guess what? You have a little bit more time off, and he starts to run back to the way we used to see. There's always been the lingering rumors that this horse has foot issues. And again, the more time off, probably the better that is. A lot of speculation about glue-on shoes for him and things along those lines. So, how much of a big deal those things are is maybe a little bit of a question mark. But Sierra Leone, so you brought up the amount of speed in this race, and that some of it I do think is a little bit cheap supposed speed. Sees the Gray. Listen, he's got one race that's good enough to win, and that was the Preakness, and that was over a muddy track where he was lone speed. It's not going to be muddy. He's not going to be lone speed. Toss. You look at Batten Down. I also like that horse a lot, and he could be a horse that just pops at the right time, and it's just like kind of this young ascending horse. Obviously, full brother to Tacitus, full sibling to Scylla, who Bill Mott also has, who's a multiple graded stakes winner now on dirt routing. So, and one of the things that Craig Milkowski pointed out when I was talking with him is this horse ran fast last time for no reason at all. Like, there was no need for Batten Down to run as fast as he did. He was like 5 lengths clear of the field, and you kind of thought Junior Alvarado might have lost control of the horse to some extent. No, he didn't. It just the horse wanted to run fast. So that's really good. Now, the Sadler horse coming in from California, Pony Express, completely agree with your assessment on that horse's speed in terms of its validity. But what I think is interesting about Sierra Leone is you brought up the point that this horse is miles back. How are you going to be miles back in a race where there's only 6 horses, 4 of which are probably going to be pretty close together up front. And then what, you're just going to have a gap of 8-10 lengths? How are you going to keep that horse engaged the whole time? So you're just spotting the field that amount of distance. The interesting part is Sierra Leone has never faced a short field before. We keep saying, oh, that's a good thing. He's not going to have as much traffic issues. I actually think it's a negative thing because at least in a large field, it gets strung out and he has somebody to pass all the time. And he has that motivation of starting picking people off. When he's just 8 lengths back, I don't know if that's what it's just going to be a tough ride for Flavien. And the alternative is Flavien tries to get this horse closer to the pace. And I think that's the sort of situation where we saw what Joel Rosario tried to do with Red Route 1 last year in the Preakness when, no disrespect to Joel, because I think it was the right thing to do. He said, there's no pace in this race. I need to be closer with a deep closer. Well, Red Route 1 wanted nothing to do with that and faded because that was just too close to the pace. So I feel like Flavien actually is a very, very narrow, window of how close he can be to this pace versus being too far back. And so I'm a little bit against him. I'm certainly against him at even money. And I guess I'll push my chips in with the fierceness in this one and just hope, like Penn State Scott has said, it's the every other, and this is the other.
Yeah, I mean, how often have we seen like these short fields, right? 4, 5, 6 horses, right?
Yeah.
And we get horses, and all of a sudden, right, they're all kind of bunched up here, right? You see this all the time. These horses get bunched up, and then all of a sudden you look at the pace, and the pace is very slow, right? Right. But whether or not, like, I don't see this melting down, even though all these horses are going to be bunched up. Your problem is that Sierra Leone's going to be all the way back here, and he's going to have absolutely nothing in between him. I have a hard time, thinking that he's going to be able to make up all that ground. Like I said, maybe a change of tactics. Flavien gets him more interested early, keeps contact with the field, gets him out clean. But now you're asking a lot of questions, a lot of things to go right for a horse that's even money. And I'm just, I think, and I pulled up the optics plot here. I mean, you see the just humongous square that fierceness is. Even if there is all that pace up front, he looks to be the one that's going to come out of that, whatever that pace scenario is, and have the most kick at the end, and even out kick Sierra Leone, who's going to be coming from a little bit further back. So, I have a hard time backing Sierra Leone in the spot. I have fierceness as my lone A, and then I will have Batten Down as kind of a C type in case something crazy happens there. But Sierra Leone's not going to be on any of my tickets.
Yeah, no, I agree.
All right, race 11. We have a state bred allowance race here going 1 mile and 16th on the turf. And we got a couple of AEs. So we got a field of 10 here, a couple of AEs. 5 AEs and an MTO. Your morning line favorite, I believe, is the 2 Rabaha at 3-1, and then Clear Conscious at 4-1, and then you start to get all kinds of prices. But where did you land here, Matthew?
Yeah, there were a couple of horses that I wanted to talk about. I'll start with the horse on the inside, Clear Conscience at 4-1 for Lisa Lewis, smaller barn, but this horse ran pretty well last time out, and I don't think there's going to be a ton of pace in this race. And stop me if you've heard that before in a New York, turf route race. But I think that looking at this one, Clear Conscience should be able to get out. It's usually sits more of a tracking trip and a mid-pack trip, but I think might be able to sit a little bit more forward on the rail, maybe gets that pocket trip. In this particular case, has been working out nicely up here at Saratoga. And like I said, came up just short at this level last time out, finished a half length back in second, going 1 mile and 1/8. So, I think that's an interesting horse. I don't necessarily love the 4-1 on that horse, but I think that's an interesting one to consider. Another horse that I really like quite a bit, and maybe it's just a cool horse with a cool story, is the number 7 Topic Changer at 10-1. This horse is he was a jumper for a while, and he's back on the flats. And guess what? He's with Mike Baker, and he's going long on the turf, and that's usually a heck of a combination. And if you're going to give me 10-1, I'll take it, especially with Tyler Gaffleone up on the mount. And this is a horse that, like I said, was on the flats, then goes to Kerry Bryan, who's a top jump trainer, and is a very good flat trainer as well. She won the bailout race today at Saratoga. And but this horse, won a stakes race jumping back in 2022, and then had almost a little over about 13 months off after the last jump race to that last time out, and ran a pretty respectable fourth in that race. And I'd imagine there might still be another level this horse could hit. So I think at 10-1, that one's pretty interesting for Maker. And yeah, those are the ones that I really circled that I thought were very interesting. I also think the number 4 Gem Mint 10 for Ray Handel. Ray's had a very, very good meet to this point. He had another win today. And this is one that I think is, again, probably going to be lone speed potentially up front. And, we'll see what the James Harold Bond horse does. But this one at 6-1 with Louis Saez aboard could be interesting, although Saez is in some sort of a funk right now at Saratoga.
Yeah, and it's rare to see Saez, go 2 for 46 anywhere. Even at Saratoga. So, he's not had the greatest start to the meet. I landed on 2 horses here. We'll start with the number 10, Willing to Risk It All. Flavian Pratt gets aboard for Jose D'Angelo. Jose D'Angelo's got 1 win and 5 starts here. If you're not familiar with him, he's very, very big presence in Florida at Gulfstream. He does very well out there. And this is just a horse that when I look at it, it's plotted out really well and has been very aggressively campaigned since leaving Robert Falcone's barn. He got claimed for $40,000 in a win on the turf at Belmont last year. And immediately Jose is putting him into the Stallion Series. Stallion Series, Rick Violet, he's trying to get that state bred money, those state bred checks. Brings him over to open allowance. And he hasn't won in a while since that maiden claimer, but he also hasn't really run terrible races. And when you kind of look at the way that he plots out, he actually plots out very favorably to some of these horses at going this surface or going this distance on the turf. I mean, he's a big old Q1 square above the par line, which you don't necessarily see a ton of in turf races. Obviously, once again, we're looking at all the horses in here, right? So you got the 11 to 15 are all AEs, and so this 13 isn't going to be here, assuming doesn't get in via scratches. So you kind of this 13, this 12, you take those kind of 2 out, and you have much less pace pressure here. You have him just sitting up there really, really nice, and if he isn't able to kind of go hang on from that pressing trip, I think the horse that's going to get first run is this other big old square here sitting back in Q4, and that's going to be the 9 horse Easy Roll with Frankie Dettori above for Tom Morley. And Mark's not here, so someone's got to pick the Morley horse, so it's going to be me. Morley, obviously 2 for 10 to start the meet as of the printing of this PP. I know he's had a couple of horses run the last couple of days. But last time out, ran 3rd in a similar condition and ran 3rd by a length. My condolences to the McCarthy Davis family, but you get Frankie aboard on a turf route instead of Trevor, and I think you might maybe see this horse move up just a little bit. And yeah, I think this horse just maybe taking a little bit of a step forward from that last effort. It's going to be very, very competitive here. He was 20-1 last time out. Unfortunately, it looks like David maybe picked up on the same thing I'm putting down. He's got him at 6-1 here. But yeah, I think that he's definitely going to be in here. He's going to be closing. And he's definitely shown a bit of a kick. I mean, last time out didn't really get all that much pace to run into. Maybe, if things get kind of crazy on the front end, maybe that 13 draws in, 12 draws in. Maybe you get a little bit more of a pace here. So I like the 9 and the 10, the two outside horses right now. And I think you're getting pretty fair prices at 6-1 and 8-1 in both of them.
Well, I'll say about both of those. One is I'll echo your sentiment about Jose D'Angelo. Runs a really good barn and is, somebody's not familiar with him up here in New York. Obviously has had a lot of success. Had a horse Grand Mo the first actually on the Kentucky Derby trail and in the Kentucky Derby this year. So he's a good trainer and has a lot of really good horses. And man, down in South Florida, he's like Chad Brown down there during the offseason. I mean, he's winning 28%, 30%. Very good. The thing I'll mention about the number 9 Easy Roll, and this is something I've just observed, and it's not scientific yet, and I'd have to go back and watch a lot of race replays. Frankie doesn't like going inside at all, and Frankie likes staying outside and on the turf. And there have been multiple instances where I'm like, Frankie, why are you fading? Why are you just wheeling this horse so far out? Little bit of a Mike Smith situation back in the day as well. Like just doesn't want to go inside, it seems like. And maybe part of it was he's still trying to get his bearings on the Saratoga turf course because he's pretty new to it and just wants to kind of stay in a relatively safe spot. I actually think the number 9 post is a good thing for him because he's going to be kind of traveling a little bit, probably 2-path or something like that and can just kind of kick out wide from there. It isn't going to be covered up. But it's just something worth noting on Dettori, and it's something worth noting maybe if he draws inside on other rides that he just hasn't seemed really comfortable with an inside trip here. So I know he's got a couple of mounts throughout the day, and just something that I've noticed, and obviously just won the last race today actually for Kerry Bryan. So he's getting wins, but just interesting to see, and good to see Keith in the chat as well.
Yeah, and it looks like Frankie's got the opposite problem that Rosario does. Rosario's got absolutely no problem going inside. So yeah, point will go inside to the right up behind another horse. So,
by the way, Josh, I really wished you could have been with me at Monmouth on Saturday, just so we could have talked about the rides that Flo gave throughout the day.
Oh goodness!
Because the ride he gave to Idiomatic and then the ride he gave to Highland Falls. I mean, it was just chef kiss emoji sort of stuff to talk about.
Goodness.
And just
I mean, I still remember, what day was it? It was last week. It was either on Wednesday or Thursday. Rosario just gave like the absolute just a Hall of Fame Rosario ride where I am just like cursing him the entire backstretch, the entire turn. I'm like, if this was the 90s and I had paper tickets only in front of me, I would have not been able to cash my win bet on the horse because I would have torn the tickets up. Yep. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he's like, hey, I think I have horse here. And he gets up by a nose. And it was just like, he had absolutely no business winning that race. And it's just, I mean, I don't know, man. It was something else.
It is brilliant. When he is on, it is absolutely brilliant. And, but yeah, you're cursing him out until it's like the basketball coach that's yelling, no, 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 no. And then the ball goes in and yes, it's the same sort of dynamic with Joel with some of his rides. I mean, nobody can deny his brilliance, but there are times where he's just like, what are we doing here? So
yeah. Have you met Jose D'Angelo?
Just in passing.
Nicest guy. Super nice.
Seems it.
Super nice. I
really likes him. Yeah.
I was able to talk to him for about a half hour with one of my good friends, Tommy Massis. We sat down and recorded something, talked with him. super nice. We got done with the interview, and like he's just like asking me questions, like, "Oh, like tell me about your family." Like just super
Yeah.
super nice guy. Him, you know who else is super nice guy? Safi.
Safi's
Same
a
thing.
lovely guy. Yep.
Oh, super nice guy. Just loved talking to him, and I
I'll
wish
tell
I
you
would
who
have.
else is. I'll tell you who else is really nice is Rudy Rodriguez. Rudy is one of the nicest guys you could possibly meet, and is like a Pied Piper when you're at Aqueduct. I just follow Rudy around, and people just gravitate to Rudy. And part of it is like Rudy is talking up and joking around with the cleaning lady and the janitors, and like he's talking. He's very much so the everyman there, and like he's talking, he's speaking Spanish to them, and he's going back to English. Like he's just switching languages back and forth, talking to different people, having a great time. Always, he's riding his horses in the morning. He knows me a little bit, and he'll like always point at me and ask me how I'm doing. And yeah, he's very very nice too. And just I know there are some people who work with us, had a little bit of a health issue, and he would always go out of his way in the paddock to go up to that person and ask how they're doing, and things like that. So he's another sweetheart of a guy, and yeah, I've heard that about Safi, is that he's like just the nicest guy to talk to as well. So
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Race 12 here. We got a mile on the inner turf, and I thought this was a really interesting race. This was, I think, for me, the spreadiest race of them all. Um, your morning line favorite, I believe, it's the 4 Summer Whirl here for Grand Motion, 5-2 in the morning line. You know, I have a question mark next to him,
yeah,
but I don't know. He looks pretty good in here too. So I think this might be one that maybe is more of a with a question mark. Is probably one I'm going to end up using. Maybe I don't have my soundboard set up, but maybe we'll sound the defensive B alert here a little bit. Um, but yeah, I think Summer Whirl looks okay in this spot, but there's just others I like better. The I have the 5, the 9, and the 12 written down. The 9 and the 12 um, are both going to be horses that really they're not going to have any interest early. They're
yeah,
both going to be, I think, coming from way off of it. But last time out, the 9. I think it's tough to make um, an excuse for him last time out. Got at least a little bit of pace to kind of close into, and did make up some ground. Ended up finishing 6th in that race, but you would have thought that you would have gotten a little bit better of an effort, like you did at 2 at Aqueduct.
mhm,
But second time Lasix, which is a plus angle for Danny Gargan, and you know I you get I know Luis had a little bit of a tough start to the meet, but
yeah,
I think you get a little bit of a jock upgrade here switching to Luis. Luis and Danny Gargan are 2 for 3 over the last 2 months. So it seems like Danny's calling Luis when he thinks he's got a live one. So um, I kind of like the 9 in this spot. The 12, Dutro is coming in here with the horse that probably should have broke his maiden first time out.
yeah,
Came right back and kind of had a disappointing start there during the Saratoga meet. Um, Coming here off of a little bit of a layoff and gets Manny aboard. Who had a pretty good start to the meet. He's winning at 17% here, and yeah, this is another one that I think if it gets a little bit of pace in front, it can take a step forward off that last effort. I think makes a bit of sense here. And then I think of the kind of front runners, I think the 5 Autumn here for Carlos Martin and Jose Lascano. Um, this is one that's kind of shown tactical speed. Started his career out sprinting. They tried him long in Shug's barn. Ended up getting transferred over to Carlos Martin. They tried him on dirt for some reason, and that obviously wasn't about as good as you could have imagined. And then
yeah,
came right back to the grass. And I think has put together 3 solid efforts. So it's just, I think, a case of if he finds the right field. And, there's a lot of horses in here that I just really, you got a bunch of like kind of career losers in here.
Sure.
And maybe this is just going to be a soft enough spot, I think, for the 5 Autumn here. So I got the 5, I got the 9, and I got the 12. Obviously, we've talked a little bit of optics on this stream, but the 4, the 9, they both plot out really, really well on the surface of distance. Obviously, you got some horses here who haven't run as of yet. And then you got the 5 Autumn kind of really, really high up on the y-axis. Tells you got a lot of that second call speed. So could be one that maybe just gets the kind of is your leader there at second call, and maybe he's got enough to kind of go all the way. And then obviously the 12 in All My Dreams. I don't think has the same kind of kick as the 4 and the 9 do, but I think he's going to be a little bit closer, maybe a little bit more tactical, and maybe just gets first run on them. So I'll be 4, 9, or 5, 4, 5, 9, and 12 here. Where did you end up landing?
Yeah, I agree with you that this is a very spready race. I think you can make a really strong argument for a few different horses. You just made a good argument for a few in there. Like you, I think the 4 and the 5 look very good. I have 2 other ones though that I like as well. But yeah, I mean, Grand Motion, Johnny Velasquez, sure, sign me up for that. Pretty much so all the time. And that's a horse, like you said, probably should have broken its maiden last time out. And I think is looking pretty formidable in the spot if it's able to continue to take a step forward. Autumn, I think, is an interesting horse because I actually think this horse got a little maybe lost on the lead, or maybe that's the wrong way to say it, but I don't think this horse is naturally a front runner. I think this horse actually prefers to sit off the pace and make a little bit of a run. I don't think the horse needs to be that far back. I actually think this horse could go back and maybe sit, I don't know, 3rd or 4th or something like that. That would be, ideal, kind of a close stalking trip and close. But it's good to see a horse have that type of versatility in that spot for Carlos Martin. So definitely like those 2, and I'll have them on my tickets. Also really like the number 1 Miss City Girl for Christophe Clement. This is one that's got a pretty nice kick as well, and was making its first start back last time out in nearly 8 months, or a little over 8 months actually. And it's second time Lasix. Blinkers are now coming on. The blinkers, I'm not sure. It's interesting why Christophe decided to add the blinkers here, because I don't know if it's to get a little bit more early speed out of the horse or to help the horse concentrate coming down the stretch, because I think that it could benefit from both. I think it wouldn't hurt to have this horse show a little bit more early speed. And it's one of those things where this horse got right up there, really close to the pace, and then never really finished and didn't really follow through. So I have a feeling it's more for concentration than for speed necessarily, but could help with the former. So that was one I was interested at 9-2. But what's interesting is that was a horse that had Flavian Prat aboard last time out. Now doesn't have Flavian, has Joel Rosario up. So this could be one of those heart palpitating rides. But Flavian goes to the number 10, which is the other horse I'm a little interested in, North End Lady. And this is one who, last time out, I think kind of very similar to Autumn in this regard, kind of got out there on the lead. I don't know if that's what this horse necessarily wants to do. I actually think you go and look at that race 2 back. Admittedly, it was on the dirt, but I think that's kind of the trip this horse probably wants to carve out. But I think it's interesting that Flavian, I have to imagine he had a choice in this race between those 2 and opted to ride here. So that maybe tells you his opinion of the horse a little bit in this spot, especially riding for Barclay Tagg, who's not, we all like Barclay, but is certainly not turning out the number of horses that Christophe is, throughout the meet, just in terms of the number of rides. But this is what I just think is, again, second start back from a significant layoff, second start back from a 10-month layoff. And I just think, has some speed to get over from that outside post position, crossing clear, Flavian going along on the turf. Those are the ones that I'm looking at. So I'm looking at kind of 1, 4, 5, and 10. in this race. But this, yeah, feels very spready for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And that's going to do it for us here on The Wrong Lead. Thank you again, Matthew, for joining me while the my two compatriots ditched the heck out of me. Where can people find you, and what do you got coming up?
So people can find me on X at Failed to Menace. You can check out all my work on NYRA Bets as well. And we have the new NYRA Bets YouTube channel. We've passed 1,000 subscribers already in the first 3.5 weeks. So we're really happy about that. And we got the stakes previews coming up. And we got Gino Bicola joined me. So we're doing a stakes preview of what's going on at Del Mar this weekend. And as I mentioned earlier, Craig Milkowski from Timeform is joining me to go through the entire Saturday Jim Dandy Day card with our top pick, top value plays. So that was a lot of fun to talk to Craig. And we'll have a lot of great other content. Tuesday night live streams at Assiniboia Downs. And but you're playing volleyball, so you can't come hang out, but everybody else can. And yeah, I got track stats videos, all sorts of good stuff up there. So make sure to check it out.
Awesome. And you can check us out at wrong_lead on Twitter, on thewronglead.com. Obviously, like and subscribe, hit all the buttons, and we will catch you guys later.